Hi there, welcome to the video. You're watching the Christchurch Review of Books and I am your host Kerry. Today you catch me on Sunday the 29th of June 2025, a couple of days before July. It is a week since the shortest day, but it's still going to be another week or two before the change in light levels or day length actually become noticeable. So we're kind of like in the dark, murky part of winter still, and that will last for another couple of months until things hopefully improve. Hasn't been too bad so far. There's been a lot of rain, not too much frosty type of stuff, no snow or anything so far. Just looks like it's going to be a wet and murky grey type of winter this year. Anyway, today it is the June book haul. We've still got a couple of days of June left, and I am expecting some more books to arrive from Amazon maybe tomorrow or the next day, but they're going to have to wait till the next book haul and they'll be a little bit out of sync, but never mind. Today we'll try and get these all done in some type of order, but I've arranged the books randomly, more or less, on the unit next to me, so I'll just pick up whatever's on top. And the first one on top is Extremophile by Ian Green. I don't know a huge amount about this book, but I know it's been nominated for several awards lately, and I bought it from Blackwells, a UK online bookseller. For some reason it's much cheaper there, I'm not sure why, and it is a sort of a cyberpunkery future type thing set in the 2040s in a kind of climate collapsed environment in the UK, and some people that describe themselves as punks doing some type of biohacking thing by day, and at night they're helping out the criminal community or what have you, and they get involved in some scheme that's over their head, and authoritarian corporations are going to go after them. The main plot of some of these books really sometimes isn't that important. The world building and the characters are what push them along, and I'm a sucker for this type of thing, cyberpunkish type thing that seems to be resurging a bit more lately. I mean, it's always been there, bubbling along since the late 80s, but people seem to be willing to stick their neck out and call themselves cyberpunk authors again. So that is Extremophile by Ian Green. Next up, something from the opposite end of history maybe, The Centauri Device by M. John Harrison. I had to think about it there. Yeah, I'm a fan of M. John Harrison's later work. I haven't read anything of this era. Now this was his kind of reaction to space opera and the new wave, I believe, in the 70s. Let me just check. I think I'm right. Yes, 1975, and I picked this book up from King's Books and Stamps, the Warrington Barbados Street intersection here in Christchurch. I know I've been past there many times but never actually been in, and I noticed the other day that they had a 50% off mark price sale, and they have a huge stock of fantasy and science fiction, in particular a whole lot of Star Trek badge stuff or marked stuff or logoed stuff, whatever you want to call it. Looks like somebody's unloaded a massive Star Trek collection in there, but that stuff doesn't really interest me unless I've got a particular inspiration to go for it, and I didn't at the moment. So I picked up a number of stuff from King's, and this is The Centauri Device by M. John Harrison. I actually own a copy of this in a very different cover. I have like an 80s edition with a angry man holding gun shouting type cover. I'll probably put it up here if I can find it online. And like I said, this is kind of, M. John Harrison is a bit of a thinking man, science fiction author, and this was his reaction to the space opera of the 70s and the new wave and that type of thing. So I believe it's something of a satire mixed into space opera itself. I don't know a huge great deal about it, but I think it's a lone man against the system type thing. So that is The Centauri Device by M. John Harrison. Another book I already own a very recent printing edition maybe of this book, The Man Who Folded Himself by David Gerald. Everyone recommends this as the epitome of time travel story adventure. It's a very short and light looking book. I have another version of this, basically as I just said, and I'll put the picture here. And this is, I think, a early 90s edition cover showing a pterodactyl flying near a beachside house. Like I said, everyone seems to love this book. It's just time travel, fun type stuff, and some guy finds a present left by one of his late relatives, and it's a time travel belt or something, and he goes on wacky adventures. And I understand it gets a little weird, a little wacky. Yeah, so basically, David Gerald, the name evokes for me is the War Against the Shator, I think it was, series which he never actually finished. It was kind of Mean's own adventure type stuff from years past, and it was a series of books which involved warfare and aliens and psychic powers and all that type of thing, and he never actually wrapped it up. Well, he hasn't yet, anyway. So that is The Man Who Folded Himself. Now, I know of Linda Nagata as a cyberpunk author. I've never actually read anything she's produced. I've never actually come across anything she produced. I know she gets lots of plaudits from reviewers about her work, and I think there's one called Needle or Spear or something recently. It got a lot of acclaim. I've never actually seen anything, so I was surprised when I was in King's Books and Stamps, like I mentioned before, that 2 books from her, I think a series is called Red. This one is The Trials, and this one is Going Dark. And unfortunately for me, these are like book 2 and 3 of a 3-book series. So the first one is just called Red or The Red or something. And it's about some special forces team in some type of cyberpunk, nanotech, corporate madness future. I'm not sure if I can get into these without reading the first one. I might dip into one to see what they're like. So that is Going Dark and The Trials by Linda Nagata. Next up, a bit of a trip down memory lane for me. I saw this and I had a rush of memory. This is Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. Now, this was a television show in the early 80s. I think it screened here in New Zealand around 1981. Originally screened in the UK 1980. And it was Arthur C. Clarke, the venerable science fiction author, inventor of the communication satellite, as the narration would tell you every week, looked at the kind of weird, occult, unexplained type thing every week, and he basically criticised the stupid beliefs of the people involved in his narration. But of course, it was a freak show. It was a wacky, weird beliefs and UFOs, aliens, Bigfoot, ghosts, all that type of thing. And at the time, there was a hefty hardcover book that came out with the series. I remember seeing that, people at school with it, in the library. I wasn't aware that a paperback version had come out, but then again, I probably wasn't paying that much attention when I was 10 years old. Apparently this paperback version is from 1982, so a couple of years after the series. There was a follow-up series like Arthur C. Clarke's World of Mysterious Powers, which kind of did all the same type of thing all over again. And my memories of it were jogged recently in the last couple of years. The venerable Fortean Times magazine did a kind of retrospective on both the series and episode by episode, and kind of like followed it up, the things in each episode as where are they now, or did anything else ever become of it. So if you have ability to look at the Fortean Times, maybe buy copies online, those are really good issues to get hold of, maybe if you're interested in this type of thing. So basically, oh dear, I just found a page is actually loose in it. That's not good. The binding's falling apart. Oh well, I only paid a couple of dollars for this anyway. So this contains all the illustrations and photos and what have you from the large hardcover, which I remember. And now I'm very worried that the pages are coming apart, so I won't stress it too much. So that is Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. It says the top bestseller based on the Yorkshire TV's famous series by Simon Welfare and John Feely. So naturally, Arthur C. Clarke himself didn't actually write it. Okay, next up. Okay, probably if you were in New Zealand in the last 25 years, maybe you were probably required to own a copy of this. This is Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I don't think it needs any great introduction. For most of the last 2 decades, I've been meaning to get hold of a copy of myself. It usually comes in the 3 individual books, of course, Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, The Return of the King. I'm sure you know all this if you're a book person. In the last quarter of the century, many times they've brought out combined omnibus type editions, and I've been meaning to pick one up just to have one as reference, because I don't actually own the individual books. I've only kind of had them from the library and other people's copies, basically. So I saw this in that King's shop, and it was very cheap, and I like the cover of this edition. There's many editions with different covers. It's the same text. So this basically has all the three books that I mentioned, and it has an inscription on the front that it used to belong to Camp Quality in 2006. Now I think that is some type of health camp where children with serious illnesses or what have you go to have a respite from their troubles, and well, somehow this has ended up in a second-hand bookshop. So that is Lord of the Rings by J.R. Tolkien. Next up, this is the first book I picked up in when I looked in Kings, and this is Gradisil by Adam Roberts. It's some type of science fiction. Adam Roberts' name basically attracted me to it, so I grabbed it. I know he is a very interesting writer. He's kind of deals with philosophical issues and morals and what have you in a science fiction framework. And this one is about the then distant future when millionaires and private individuals control space flight and exploration. So I don't know too much about this one now. It's just kind of moral dilemmas about private individuals with lots of money. I'm sure we can't relate to that at all. So that is Gradisil by Adam Roberts. Okay, next up I hit up RTB's online website. I usually browse there a couple of times a week at least to see what new secondhand books have come in and if there's any choice items which I'd like to grab. And last week I found this. Now this is 1001 classical recordings you must hear before you die. Now this is a part of the, I think well known to book nerds, 1001 blahs you must blah before you blah series. There's been many of these. I think you get ones on architecture, children's books, normal books, other books, comics, records, TV, film, all that type of thing. So I grab them when I find them cheap, because they're usually a wealth of information that it's all stuck together in one place that you usually have to look all over the place for. And this one basically goes by various classical works in a chronological order. See it criticised online because it doesn't put all the composers together. It just scatters their work throughout the years from early medieval time up to the 20th century. I was really into classical music a few years back when I listened to Concert FM, or Concert, RNZ Concert as it's known now. It's kind of like a classical musical station here in New Zealand, mainly as an escape from the commercials and blah blah of commercial radio or what have you. It was a kind of relaxing type of thing. I've kind of drifted away from it again, but I do remain with an interest in classical music. I kind of know the basics of who's who and all that type of thing. So this book appealed to me. So anyhow, that's 1001 classical recordings you must hear before you die, edited by Matthew Rye. And it's quite a hefty, well illustrated, well laid out book. Lots of pictures of the composers, and it also smells like some type of strange chemical, so I don't know where this came from. Okay, back to Scorpio Books. So last week I took a walk from home down to Scorpio Books, and I was surprised to see this edition of Where the Axe is Buried by Ray Naylor available there. It was in the window, so that attracted me. I've been waiting for this one to come out for a while, and I've only seen it in like the US edition, so I wasn't aware that this one even existed, but this is the UK Commonwealth version of the book. Now, Ray Naylor put out a book a few years back called The Mountain in the Sea, which was highly acclaimed, looked at octopuses, cybernetics, all sorts of thought and action and consequences, and this is his next Well, he put out a small volume about woolly mammoths or something between that one and this one, but this is his next major novel. And it's some type of geopolitical thing about the future in Europe and Russia. There are things have become unrecognisable because of AI's got involved in politics, and there's an assassination plot, and some person is the hope of the reformers and the rebels and all that type of thing. So it looks interesting. I don't know too much about the plot really, that just other than what I've just said. It's kind of geopolitical adventures and quandaries and what have you in a future planet Earth. So that is Where the Axe is Buried by Ray Naylor. Okay, so at the beginning of the month, I think actually on June the 1st, I ended up in Scorpio again for the annual sale. I actually blundered into it. I didn't know it was actually on the day before, at the last day of May, so I went back the next day fully prepared to basically stand around for half an hour, shuffling around with the crowds of people around the trestle tables they put all the sale books out on. Like it has been for the last few years, it wasn't quite the amazing selection they used to give, and the discounts weren't quite as much as they used to give. But anyway, I found a few. Now the first one I found was this one, Secondhand, Travels in the New Global Garage Sale by Adam Minter, non-fiction book about basically where all your second-hand goods go, where the things that you return go, the global trade in used goods, repaired goods, refurbished goods, that type of thing. It looks quite interesting. Not sure when I'll get around to reading it though, but that's just one of those books out there if I feel the need to get into that topic. Excuse me. And another one I found at the Scorpio sale was this one, People Hacker, Confessions of a Burglar for Hire by Jenny Radcliffe. Now this is about a woman who was brought up in a crime-ridden family, basically, who knows how to use social engineering to get her way into people's houses or their property or their information, and she now hires herself out to test security and all that type of thing. So it could be interesting, might not be interesting, I don't know. Just I was partially attracted that it's in a library binding, which you don't see too often in mainstream bookshops anymore. And the last one I got from this sale was this graphic novel version of The Ragged Trousered Philanthropist, oh, I can barely say it. And that is Robert Tressel's early 20th century book, which was a kind of like a major boost for socialism and socialist ideas about poor working class people in the UK, and the man who tries to bring them the good news about socialism, basically, and all the consequences of that. Now, this is a well-regarded graphic novel. I've seen it reviewed very well. A little talky for some people, apparently, a little too political, but that's the whole point of the thing. So that is The Ragged Trousered Philanthropists. Got to be careful when you say that one. And this has been produced as a graphic novel by Scarlett and Sophie Rickard. Okay, last one, last but not least, also arrived from Amazon recently, was Saga Volume 12. Now, for the uninitiated, Saga is a very long running now. It's been going over a decade now, pretty much, and it is a kind of science fiction, romance, action, drama, soap opera type thing. Basically, individuals on the opposite sides of a galactic war fall in love, have a child, and of course this type of thing is not acceptable, so the authorities and the media and everyone is after them, and they've been in hiding, and there's been deaths and births and all sorts of changes throughout the years. And this is put out as a monthly comic. Well, there was a pause in them actually for a couple of years there, but put out monthly, and even every year the monthly ones are collected into these soft cover editions, which basically cover a whole year's worth of comics. And also some of these soft cover collections have been bound into like larger collections, so you can get several years worth at once as well. So this is just a simple year's worth one. I haven't read it yet. I used to be really into this, and I would have jumped on this thing as soon as I arrived, but it's just another thing on the pile now. And I think Saga just had a unique way of making you feel for the characters, and even minor characters. There's still scenes in it I remember which evoked serious emotions in me back in some of the earlier versions. So that's why I keep buying it. I think the combination of Brian K. Vaughan's storyline and Fiona Staples' artwork is quite magic. They can evoke, like I said, emotions from you which you don't expect to feel for a ongoing comic. So that is Saga Volume 12. I think that is pretty much it for this month's book haul. I hope I haven't bored you too much with this blathering. Next up, I'm going to do a review video for a very special graphic novel which I just finished reading a couple of days ago called Ginseng Roots by Craig Thompson. Kind of blew me away with the artwork and the story and what have you, so I'll get into that more very soon. So until then, we'll catch you next time. Cheers.